Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to this presentation on the organizational structure and recommendations for Indiana Wesleyan National and Global. We've been reviewing the way the organization is set up for some time now, and here are the results for our finding. So we'll share screen here real quick. All right. There we go. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So right here, you'll see a chart that outlines the structure of Indiana Wesleyan National and Global. Now, if you look up here at the top, you'll see we've got Dr. Lucas here leading up the division. National and Global is actually one of three divisions that make up the Indiana Wesleyan University organization, the other two being Marian Traditional Campus and Wesley Seminary. But this presentation will be focusing solely on National and Global with a special emphasis on the Student Account Services Office and Class Start team. And below Dr. Lucas, you have this level, which is referred to as the Executive Cabinet. And these are all heads of different divisions. A few of them have their own special functions. And below them are the different managers, and then the structure kind of breaks down further from there. Now you will notice most of these have a direct reporting relationship. That's why we have the solid lines. But if you notice, we've got three individuals who have these dotted lines. What are these dotted lines for? Well, they are to indicate a secondary indirect reporting relationship to another manager. In this way, IW National and Global has been referred to as a matrix organization, which is where not every single employee has a straight line between them and the top. It's more of a network answering to multiple different managers. Granted, this reality only applies to a small number of National and Global employees. The vast majority have more of a direct reporting relationship, but because these relationships exist, it has been referred to as a matrix organization. Starting off breaking this down, we've got our three special function members. There's the Executive Director of Multicultural Engagement, the AVP of Education Partnerships, and our Chief Strategy Officer. Each of these individuals holds a special role and a special function to help IW National and Global leadership with their success. Moving on, let's get this out of the way here. All right, moving on, we've got our VP of Student Services, Sue Melton. Student Services deals with graduation, registration. We've got evaluation underneath there, student success, academic technology, and all the chaplains and all these different groups work together to help with the student experience. And we also have the marketing division, fairly self-explanatory what they do. But underneath, we've got our Director of Educational Technology Systems, our Executive Director of Creative Services, Assistant Director of Communications, Media Manager, Production Manager, and Marketing and Financial Support. Together, this team works on getting the word out and getting students in, marketing. Okay, moving on. We have National and Global Enrollment Management. This is our admissions team, our retention team. We also have underneath that growth initiative. We have financial aid. These are the people who work on getting the students from applied status to actually accepted, actually in class. works to help them find funding, works to help them stay in class. We've got our reentry team underneath there. They work with students who have left the university and now looking to come back. All of this falls under our Miss Sylvia, who heads up the division. Then we've got Rita Pinkerton, who heads up budget and student account services. Below her, we actually have 5 individuals, one of which is not pictured here in this chart. We have Jacob Whiteneck, who is one of our matrix relationship individuals, who is the project manager for finance, the director of customer service, Kim Elliott, and director of billing, Renee Doyle. They work with student account services, is also an assistant director of billing, who is not pictured here. That's Christy Boyland, and budget analyst Dana Howlett. Now, the majority of this presentation will focus in right here on the student account services side, underneath Renee, Kim, and Christy, who is not pictured. Moving on, we have our AVP of Innovation for the Innovation of for the Center of Innovation and Learning. This group works to find new ways and to stay on kind of the edge of what's going on in the educational world. That's headed up by Aaron Crisp, and then Carson Castleman, who heads up the regional offices, part of IWU's National and Global's success strategy. Our regional offices in various cities across Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio, who serve as locations for classes and as recruitment centers. And Dr. Carson Castleman and his team, pictured here on the right, they are responsible for overseeing the success of these regional offices. And then we have Mike Manning, who leads the division for academic affairs. And underneath of him, we've got multiple divisions. There's a School of Business, the School of Educational Leadership, School of Service and Leadership, Division of Liberal Arts, Planning and Evaluation, and Learning Programs. This is overseeing grades and the academic success of our students and dealing with discrepancies between professors and students. And then we also have 2 divisions, the Division of Health Science and the School of Nursing, that because of their size, each have their own academic affairs division. There is Dr. Martin Rice, who's in charge of School of Health Science, and Barbara Burke, who heads up School of Nursing. They fulfill the same basic functions as Dr. Manning, but focus specifically on these 2 larger divisions. All right, so looking at authority and power. So the official ladder is Dr. Lucas, followed by executive council members, department managers, team leaders or supervisors, and then the frontline employees. The further down you go, the less explicit power you have. What is explicit power? Explicit power is power that is granted to you because of your title, your position, your role, and it is well defined, well known, and well documented. There is another type of power, though, that we do see exist within the IWU National and Global structure, and this will be a bit more significant later on in the presentation. and that is what we call expertise power. Expertise power is power or influence. Power is basically the ability to exert influence on another individual, but it is power that derives from having knowledge or skills, not necessarily a particular role. Now we see authority and rank. There's this top-down structure right here, but decision making is more bottom up. Indiana Wesleyan, National, and Global prefers to let the lower levels of management make decisions whenever possible, and only climb up the ladder when decisions cover a more encompassing scope. For example, frontline employees are given a fair amount of freedom with how they get their job done, as long as they get the right job done. And decisions that only involve one or two teams, those supervisors are able to make those decisions on their own. For example, Jeff Benazzo's predecessor, Liana Gallant. Lee and the leader of the Fort Wayne Enrollment Division back in 2019 were working on a way to get students financially cleared quicker, and created what was called the pilot program, where enrollment reps who are pretty sure a student could be cleared could put students on this special Google Docs sheet to have their reviews expedited and get them cleared a little bit quicker. This is an example of this bottom-up decision-making model. Since it only affected those two teams, the only people who had to be involved in the decision-making process were Lee and the leader of the Fort Wayne enrollment team, Stephanie McCracken. So norms and cultures, IW mission statement. IW is a Christ-centered academic community committed to changing the world by developing students in character, scholarship, and leadership. So this comes out of the fact that Indiana Wesleyan is a Christian-owned and run organization, and as such, exerting that Christian influence on the culture and the world around us, and changing that culture through our involvement, being, as the Apostle Paul put it, in the world but not of the world, is a very big part of what makes IWU IWU. And this is a big part of what the university goals and aims to see happen. Different departments handle this different ways. Some departments, like financial aid, require their employees to memorize it. Other departments, like student account services, it's encouraged but not required. But this mission statement, like with most organizations, the mission statement is intended to be a guiding principle in all decision making that occurs in the organization. And then the four postures, these are something unique to Indiana Wesleyan, National, and Global. And they all have biblical origins. We're commanded to love our neighbor. We're commanded to be always growing and learning. We're commanded to share with those in need, and we are commanded to pray persistently. All four of these in the Bible. And these are four areas that National and Global has chosen to place special emphasis on. These are discussed frequently in the chapels. These are posted in multiple locations in the offices. They're talked about in departmental meetings. And Dr. Lucas even gives awards for people who demonstrate one of these postures. And leadership, very big in trying to instill this, trying to value this, making this the carrot that is held out in front of the employees to try and model these four qualities in their life and in their work. And LEAP, this is a kind of resurrected acronym that's been given a new name: love and educate anyone possible. This is, again, intended to be a part of the culture and mindset of Indiana Wesleyan University. Anyone we can get into our university, anyone we can get into our programs, we will love them. We will give them a quality education and just reflect that Christ-like love to the community around us whenever possible. IWU and diversity. Diversity refers to the spectrum of different races, religions, genders, national origins, etc., that exist within an organization or exist within a community. And on a large scale, IWU National and Global does contain employees of many different races and ethnic backgrounds. This is a thing that National and Global has done fairly well on a big bird's eye view level. But where it comes to student account services, the diversity is a little less obvious, a little less straightforward. We're not as diverse of a group as the rest of the university. Currently, there are 33 employees within the department. Racial diversity, as you can see, this is not super diverse in this area. White American, 31, Hispanic, 1, Asian, 1. Gender diversity, again, not very diverse, but in the reverse of what you're typically used to seeing, with 8 male employees and 26 female. In terms of age, that's where we get the largest range of diversity, with 5 falling in the 22 to 29 age range. The biggest group being in the 30 to 49 age range at 20, and then 8 that fit into the 50 plus age category. SAS class starts and diversity gets a little more uniform, a little less diverse here in this group. Racial diversity, white 4, Asian 1. Gender diversity, male 4, female 1. Coincidentally, that 1 female is also the only Asian individual within the organization, within the department. Age diversity, a little less spread out than the rest of the department, with 1 at 21, 1 at 29, 2 at 31, and 1 at 40. Other considerations, culture of caring and knowing. This relates directly to our posture of loving and sharing, but it's a cultural reality within Indiana Wesleyan National and Global that we want to not only work well with our coworkers, but to also know them and have a personal relationship. And then power and conformity. This is more of a possible issue spot for IWU National and Global, but it's this expectation that if this individual has more explicit power than I do, again, that's role-based, not necessarily skill-based, but if they have more explicit power than I do, I am expected to just simply do what I've been asked. And in some cases, this has created issue and has potential for more problems in the future, just not a whole lot of room for question or debate. Decision-making model, as we mentioned before, the decision-making model tends to be more bottom-up, and the example being the Fort Wayne pilot that we discussed earlier. Some strength is that it empowers employees, it takes advantage of frontline knowledge and reduces workload on top leadership. Some of the weaknesses, though, vulnerable to confusion, conflict, and chaos. A more top-down decision-making model guarantees more uniformity across the board and less potential for miscommunication. With this bottom-up decision-making model, communication becomes that much more important. And in general, the communication is pretty decent, a lot better than it was a few years ago. IW National and Global has shown a lot of improvement in this area, sharing communications across departments. But this is going to be continued, is going to continue being a potential weakness of the bottom-up decision-making model. So job design and analysis. So looking at the setup, we have Dr. Lucas, followed by Rita Pinkerton, Kim Elliott, and Jeff Panazzo, who's the class start supervisor. And then you've got the other 4 members of the class start team: Jeremy Vardaman, Stephen Howlett, Drake Buddy, and Risa Fukuda. Now, one thing you'll notice is that these 4 are pictured at different heights with these dotted lines. And these level 2, level 3, level 2, level 1 student worker. This is intended more as an expression of expertise power, which, as stated before, is power and influence that comes from knowing more about the job and being better skilled. Jeremy Vardaman has been on the job the longest. Drake, the least amount of time of the 3 full-time workers. And then Risa, as stated, is the intern or student worker and the newest period in the group. Now, technically, all 4 of these have the same level of explicit power, but because of this difference in expertise, this difference in seniority, this difference in ability, there is this informal structure that exists, and this informal differentiation. It was actually created as part of an incentive program to value learning and development. We'll get more on that in the future. So job duties, there are certain duties that are shared across the board among different members of the class start team. There's phones, emails, and a free day. Everyone gets 2 days that they're on phones, 1 day that's free, 1 day that's email. And these are divided among the 4 full-time members, which would include Jeff Panazzo. And Risa, she does more of the busy work and actually splits her time between budget office and student account services team. But on top of that, the individuals have their own unique jobs and roles. Jeff has supervisory duties in the Fort Wayne pilot. Jeremy has class call, late ads, pre-bills, and closing lists, and working specifically with VESTA students. These are students who come to us through an organization called VESTA, which does recruitment for colleges. Stephen works with re-entries and the daily cleared list, and Drake with deferrals, the Wesley Seminary pilot, closing, the web development cluster, and distribution of review lists. These jobs are unique to these individuals, unlike the phones and emails, which are shared, with a few exceptions, and we'll get to that now. So we also have designated backups. What this means is if one person is gone, there's another individual who's designated to take on their duties. These relationships are Jeremy and Jeff. So if Jeff is gone, Jeremy takes over. If Jeremy is gone, Jeff takes over, and then Drake and Stephen. If Drake is gone, Stephen takes over his duties. If Stephen is gone, Drake takes over his. Now, what if both people in this relationship are gone? Then the 2 remaining take over the remaining responsibilities. What if 3 are gone? Then one person takes over all the responsibilities, though the class start team makes a strong effort to not have more than 2 gone at any one time. So in reality, even though these duties are unique to individuals, these duties listed here on top in the previous slide, all 4 members are expected to know all these functions at least well enough. And then the one who it's their designated responsibility is expected to be more of an expert in those areas, and their backup is expected to be the next most knowledgeable. So performance improvement and evaluation. Move this again and get this out of the way. So there's two different paths that can be taken, the troubled employee and the regular path. The troubled employee, these are employees who are having consistent ongoing issues that must be addressed. They are first put on an improvement plan, which is a developed idea for improving the troubled behavior. And then was it successful? Yes, then they're back in good standing. No, there's two different possibilities. Number one, the plan is amended or extended, and we continue on with this process. Or two, they are simply terminated. And the regular process, this occurs once a year. The employee does a self-assessment, the supervisor does an assessment, and then there's an annual meeting to compare and contrast these two assessments and come up with an agreement, a compromise between the two. The class start team performance improvement and evaluation process. For troubled employees, it is exactly the same. But for the regular process, we have this extra step of these quarterly meetings, which are a smaller version of the annual review meeting that occurs down here. And then collectively, this cycle of meetings helps feed into and improve the employee self-assessment and supervisor assessment, which then informs the annual review meeting. The downside is that this takes a little bit more time and effort, but the upside is issues are caught a lot quicker, reducing the frequency with which this has to be used and implemented. And these annual review meetings are rarely ever a surprise. So potential issues with the appraisal process. First off, we have relative ranking. What is relative ranking? Relative ranking is ranking that is based upon opinions or perspectives rather than specific designed criteria, which would be referred to as objective ranking. What would be a good example? Objective ranking would be like taking a test in school. Each question has a right answer or a wrong answer, and based upon whatever percentage of the questions you get right, you get a percentage grade, which is then converted to a letter grade. This is objective ranking. Relative ranking, on the other hand, would be more like maybe a singing contest where judges evaluate how well they feel you performed and gives you a score based upon their opinions of your performance. This is relative ranking. IW National and Global's appraisal process utilizes relative ranking, which is subject to issues like opinions, feelings, and emotions. And there's no control over bias. Bias is any predetermined notion that an individual approaches a situation with. And because of the way the appraisal process is currently set up, there is really no way to prevent a supervisor from approaching an employee with bias, and there's really no recourse if an employee believes that they've been judged unfairly. Other rewards and incentives. Stratification. We touched on this briefly when we were talking about the informal expertise power setup here of the national and global team. What it is that there are 4 levels created: entry level, level 1, level 2, and level 3 for all positions within the Student Account Services office. And once an employee has been there for 1 year, they are automatically moved up to level 1. Then after that, once a year, there are opportunities to prove that an individual has learned enough, has increased their skill, has increased their performance to be worthy of a higher level. And if they are able to do that, they can get a raise and are rewarded for their having taken the time to learn, to develop, and to grow. And this isn't just a and out there, hey, we want you to get better. With the stratification, they actually have defined, okay, your skill needs to be here. You need to be attending so many learning opportunities every year. You need to read these books before you can move forward, so that employees know exactly what they have to do to learn, to grow, and to develop to the point where they have the ability to move to a higher level. Shout outs, these are where members of the Student Account Services Office can recognize to the management an employee who has gone above and beyond in their job duties, and they are then publicly acknowledged in the daily meetings. Staff Council, this is a group of individuals from across the university, and their job is to create employee appreciation events, such as the annual karaoke party, the annual Christmas party, just various different opportunities to show employees that, hey, we do appreciate you, we do like what you do, which in turn improves morale and improves performance, because employees are working where they feel valued, where they feel appreciated. And then the social committee is the same basic idea as the staff council, but this is a smaller committee that's specifically for the Student Account Services Office and deals specifically with making employees of this division of this office feel welcome and appreciated. The Superhero and Mindset Awards. I touched on this earlier when I was talking about our 4 postures and Dr. Lucas. These are where he, during our weekly devotions, takes the time to recognize people who have shown one of these 4 postures or have just really gone above and beyond for the organization. And they're given, in the case of Mindset Awards, an IW National and Global coffee mug. In the case of the Superhero Awards, a little fake superhero plaque to put on their office door to let everyone know that they've been recognized for their work. And again, this is another way to show that we value these 4 postures, to show that we value people who have gone above and beyond, and to keep employees motivated to continue demonstrating these postures, to continue trying to find new ways to better the organization. So recommendations: improve collaboration. IWU National and Global has come a long way in terms of where it once was and where it is today in the area of collaboration, but improvement is needed to reach maximum efficiency in an organization. Better performance reviews. The performance reviews only occur once a year, and in many departments are seen as a hassle to get through and not an opportunity to improve. A cultural shift in this area would be helpful, and adding SMART goals would also be helpful. We can also capitalize on our culture of caring and knowing, and clear definition of powers and conformity expectations. So improve collaboration. IWU can use co-working spaces. This would be a little harder to do with COVID going on, but with the vaccines out and available now, maybe we can get back to implementing this at national and global a bit more. But one positive side of the COVID is that everyone now has a laptop, something that hadn't existed before. So one thing National and Global could do is provide areas where employees from different departments can get together in the same area and be working in the same area. And in so doing, share ideas, share communications. This can be an opportunity to better communicate, better find areas where departments can help each other, to find new opportunities for growth and improvement, and just continue to develop that network of, hey, we know each other, we care for each other, and we're all in this together. And cross-departmental events. Class starts team has had multiple meetings with the enrollment teams, particularly in Fort Wayne and Indianapolis North, to discuss how their jobs interact and how they can improve their functions. by helping each other out. Applying this principle to other departments, other teams, can help make different teams function more smoothly and to work together a bit better. Improve the performance feedback process. So first off, we could improve perceived value. This would require a cultural shift and a mindset shift. But the main problem is that there's just a lack of interest in the process. If we could focus on some of the benefits like better productivity, reduced chances of getting on an improvement plan, good reviews can help get promotions, and understanding how the review process impacts the overall strategy, maybe we can improve the way it is viewed. And this would require a lot of cheerleading from top levels, a lot of communication, and a lot of just investigating why do people view this so negatively. And we can use it to further develop the culture of IW National and Global. For example, as I mentioned before, financial aid requires in the review process to be able to recite the IW mission statement from memory. Things like this added to more departments could probably improve the feedback process for different individuals. And IW could also start using SMART goals, which is an acronym used for identifying good goals. For example, specific, it's not general, but the goal has a means of success that is clearly defined. Measurable, there's an objective means by which to measure success. Achievable, the goal and success is within the person's capability. Realistic, similar to achievable, but there is a reasonable expectation for the person to succeed, and there is a defined deadline to achieve success. So for example, one of the parts of the class start job is calculation sheets. Seeing, okay, does a student have the financial aid to cover their program, and if they're short, how much do they need to pay? And let's say you have a student or a member of the class start team, sorry, not a student, who is averaging 80% effectiveness, meaning 80% of their calculation sheets are correct. So just simply saying improve calculation sheet performance, that's not a SMART goal. Yes, you have a specific goal, improve performance, but everything else just kind of falls through. However, if you were to change it and say, increase effectiveness to 95% within 90 days, now you have more of a SMART goal. You have specific, we're nailing it down, we want 95% effectiveness. Measurable, you can measure it by how many calculation sheets did they do, how many had errors, how many did not, turn that into a percentage. Achievable and realistic, improving just 15% over a 90-day or 3-month period, that's a 5% improvement per month. Certainly works. In time bound, the deadline is 90 days after the start of the goal. Capitalize on culture of caring and knowing. As Christ followers, we are expected to love each other. In fact, Christ himself said that the 2 most important commandments in all of the Bible are love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. And therefore, if that's the second most important commandment, in which these 2 commandments are summarized, all the law and the prophets, then it is really important for us as a Christ-centered academic community to really demonstrate that within our organization. And the culture of caring and knowing has created tight bonds in the past. These bonds can be strengthened. And we can acknowledge as part of our culture and onboarding, we can bring in more events to facilitate getting to know some of your coworkers better. And as these tight bonds are built, they will create new strengths in the form of better understanding, better communication and better sense of oneness between departments. And it also makes it easier to be forgiving towards other departments. Another command of Christ is to forgive one another just as in Christ, God forgave you. It's a lot easier to do that when the person on the other side of the phone is someone you actually know and that you've actually spent time with and that you've actually talked to, and you know how they think, you know how they process, than when they're just a random voice on the other end of the phone who you don't even know what their motivation might be or what they're going through. So if we capitalize on this element of our culture, it can really help the organization. And then clear definitions on power and conformity. As said before, the expectation is if you've got a higher level of explicit power, a power that comes to you because of your position, because of your role, then whatever you tell me to do, I'm just going to do it, no questions asked. And this has been a problem because sometimes individuals have tried to bypass rules, bypass department lines, and it's created issues. For example, doesn't happen super often, but there have been instances in the class start team where individuals higher up bypass the team to get a student cleared to get them in class, and the student wasn't supposed to be cleared. The class start team, their whole point, their whole role is to evaluate incoming students and make sure that they have the finances necessary to pay for at least their first term. And when that process is bypassed, sometimes students get in who are in over their heads, who cannot handle the financial impact of being in college at this point in time, and it creates bad debt, it creates problems for the students. And so if we could have more of a clear definition on when someone with more expertise power, not expertise power, explicit power, can and can't make demands of individuals lower in the pyramid, and individuals lower down, the frontline employees, can and can't question what they're being asked to do, then we could avoid this particular issue. And another problem that was missed here in the one more recommendation that was missed here in the slideshow is to develop some kind of control over bias and some kind of appeal process. We could create an opportunity through which employees who feel like they have been discriminated against by bias among their supervisors can appeal that bias and some kind of more objective means by which to determine an employee's ranking. The implementation of SMART goals could definitely be one of those ways in which we implement more objective ranking. We create these SMART goals in a meeting this year, and then next year we review the SMART goals and did we meet them, and determine did we meet them based upon the measurement criteria we established in the original meeting a year ago. So that would be the organizational structure and the recommendations for IW National Global. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.